spot, weekly speaker spot. Let's move on to the weekly speaker spot. Now, I had someone in mind. Now I've just got to find where that person is. All right, every week at Business at Breakfast, one of the members gets the opportunity to share with the group a little bit more about themselves and to well, tell us more about what it is that they're doing. They really don't know in advance that they've been picked. I usually have a little spiel, but I don't think that the spiel rings true anymore. Is I'll just pull you out of the crowd. There we go. And and then I'm going to give you some instructions, and you can speak according to my instructions, and we'll have a bunch load of questions to ask. So welcome aboard, Sandy Abbate. You have been with Business at Breakfast for like years. We've known each other since, I don't know, since HMP days, the beginning of HMP days. So we're looking at 2020, 2021 for me, and then we've known each other for that long. In Australia, it's that time of year where we're about to get our taxes done, and because we do ours at the from July. But of course, before you can get your taxes done as an entrepreneur, having a little bit of bookkeeping is always a good idea. But otherwise, the accountant will charge you a mammoth amount to put that bookkeeping into place. So I thought it would be a nice opportunity for you to tell us, I mean, what works in America is kind of the same here in regards to what you do. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to give us your elevator pitch, telling us what you sell, and then the quick history of how you came about selling that. And then stop talking and we'll have questions.
All right. So yes, my name is Sandy Abbate, founder of SCA Bookkeeping. I help small business owners understand their numbers, take control of their cash flow, and finally start paying themselves what they're worth. I love to connect and explore what I can do to help you. And really, the way this all started was I've always been in management. I mean, my first job even led to management. And so I just assumed that every business, kept their records. Well, because of some health issues, I decided to take a step back because I was also working as their employee in their stores and stuff, and it wasn't always the easiest. So I went to a hospital, was contracted in to help people who came in with no insurance. The only people I could not help right away within that first visit, give them that peace of mind, were small business owners, especially those in the trades, your electricians, your plumbers, your construction guys, because they didn't know what their numbers are. Those numbers are so important. And once COVID hit and they were put in a bad position again for not knowing their numbers, I decided it was time to step in and help them.
Okay. Who has questions for Sandy?
I will say one of the biggest problems that I've seen is that they don't even know how to price their services. And a lot of times they don't know how to price their services because they don't know what they need to keep the business going. They're out there working and working and working, and sometimes, 12, 16 hours a day, but there's nothing left at the end of the day.
Sandy, I'm not sure if it's the same in Australia, in the States as opposed to Australia. One of my clients had a good profit, 700K profit. But with all the movements in working capital, it came down to 200K in free cash flow, which seemed, yeah, okay, they can still stand. However, I then found out that they had a lot of after dividend finances that needed to be paid for stuff like mezzanines and HP on vehicles, high purchase on vehicles that came out in after dividend money. So the net cash flow from a 700 profit turned into a minus $200,000 negative cash flow. They're literally drowning in debt. What advice would you give them?
I sit there and those are the exact people that I'm trying to help. For one, what they do, I mean, we've got what we call job costing, and that's when we sit there and take the labor that it costs to get the job done, the materials it costs to get the job done, anything related to the job, But the one thing that's forgotten is the overhead. You have to know your overhead price, what it takes to keep your business running. Add that into your cost factor so that, at the end, when the job's done, you still have money left to get all those extra little bills paid. So does that answer your question?
Pretty much. I saw that their biggest challenges were cost of goods and margin, not pricing correctly, and then their labor costs were going out, and then obviously not charging appropriately to cover those higher purchase costs that were hidden and not on the normal profit and loss statement.
Right. I mean, definitely they need to be shopping around to get the best deals. But in today's day and age, no, you got to pay what you got, what you've got to pay, and you have to turn that over to your customer. Sadly to say.
Okay. Thank you. Slightly different focus, but I understand where you're coming from. Thank you.
Diane, you've got your hand up?
Sandy, when small businesses are doing okay, but they're running on the edge, right? They need another salesperson, but not quite yet. They need another half-time operations person, but not quite yet. And rarely does bookkeeping come into it when it's the owner that's doing the bookkeeping and they think they've got it. What are some red flags that a owner could check for themselves to say, maybe I better do the bookkeeper first instead of the new salesperson or what are some just classic red flags you see on it all the time?
Right. And I don't know necessarily if I have the red flags. I would sit there and say that if you're doing the books yourself and you're ready to hire someone in, it might be cheaper to get the bookkeeper just for the simple fact of, you're probably spending longer doing something that that isn't your expertise, to where the bookkeeper is going to get it done faster, which will, give you more time to get out there and make the money that you can. I also am a very strong believer in forecasting. You should always know, what you can and can't afford. How much can you really afford to bring someone new on? And so there's some great forecasting tools out there to sit there and really sit there and show where you're going. I believe audits are a good thing. A lot of people sit there and think of audits as in someone actually just coming and looking over the book. But, there's all sorts of audits. You've got, you definitely have the cash flow audits, the book audits, but you also have time audits. How is the time being spent? If you're not spending that time doing the book, what would you be doing otherwise? And is that going to bring in more revenue or give you more family time?
Thank you.
Peter, you got your hand up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my hand up. The majority of companies, when they do their accounts, they have sales, expenses, and net profit. The problem with that is that because all the expenses are just in alphabetical order, basically they're meaningless, and you have no idea how you're doing and what you're doing and where you're doing it. I've been able to take a business that was being offered $300,000 to sell, and when I changed the profit and loss in a way that was meaningful, instead of being offered 300,000, the same people offered them 1.3 million. And the reason for that is they could then say, okay, I can see that you're very profitable, but I can also see where you're spending your money. And I can see that you're spending your money on retirement things that got nothing to do with the business because they've been put in the right place and I can understand them. And in the same way, they say, okay, well, look, let's have a look and see, which is you mentioned earlier, Charles, that there's not just one profit, there's actually three profits.
Hmm.
You've got your gross profit. The gross profit is the sales less the cost of sales. That's what you've got to have as a percentage. And you know, so long as it stays constant, you can work out how much you're going to have to pay for all your expenses. And when you know what your expenses are, you can have a look at them and see if there's any change or difference, or what you can buy, what you can't buy, or where your situation is. And it's very, very simple. And then other things have got nothing to do with the business, because that's the operating expenses. And then you've got other income and outgoings. If you do that, you can understand how your business is working, you can understand what's going on, and you can see what things are. And you don't have to rely on other people to tell you if you're making a profit or not. And that's sort of one of the business mindsets that puts people in charge of their business, that I show people how to achieve in a very short amount of time. And I'm sure that's the sort of thing that you do, Sandy.
Right, right. And I guess the one part of my system, I mentioned the forecasting, but it's also the budget. I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about budget, but that budget does sit there and shows where the money is being spent, how much is being spent, and how much should be allotted in those sections.
I find it amazing how much people don't like to speak about budget. So I've got a 13 and a 15-year-old, and I've been saying to them, well, that's not in the budget. How can we have moved to this place and have no money? It's not that we don't have any money. It's just that you want suddenly right now wasn't in the original budget. And so therefore, I have to drag the money from somewhere. So now I've started to tell them, Simon bought them tickets to go see Metallica in November. Now, for Simon and the boys to get to Metallica, it's a 1,200-kilometer drive to get there. So an 800-mile drive to get there, or it's 4 hours to the west in a car. Then it's a plane flight down. They're staying in Sydney for a night, and then, or two, and then they'll come back. And so money has to be saved because it's not till November. And so by now they should have let's say $1,000, $1,050 in their account waiting for November. But because of their insistence of, I want McDonald's now, and I don't want to wait, and I don't see why I can't have, and why can't I have this, I've gone, I have no problems with buying you all of that. It comes out of your trip to Metallica, and how much is left will determine whether or not you even go, just because the tickets were bought. You can't magically just turn up. So now they've had to, so after them spending $1,000 on nothing that they don't necessarily consider worth it now, they're starting to go, when they ask for things, they're like, I'd really like it, but I'm not saying that you should go out and get it, Mum. I'm just saying that that's how I feel in this moment. Because now they have to compare it to whether or not they're going to Metallica with Dad and to see their cousins and Uncle Matt. So it's got to come from somewhere, right?
Tell them to go. It'll be an experience they'll never forget.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's the point, right? Budgets is, nobody likes budgets, but somebody has to talk about it. So, Sandy, you're the appointed budget queen, I suppose. That and business coaches are the ones that they do have to talk about budgets. You don't have to like it. That's the line that I use in sales all the time. You don't have to like the information I'm telling you. You just have to know it, so that then you can make informed decisions as to what you're going to do moving forward.
I had a lecture, the head of Coca-Cola in South Africa at one stage. He had this mantra, which he said that a budget is a commitment, and a commitment is a promise. You keep your promises. And that was his mantra.
Yeah. Okay. So in The Richest Man in Babylon, there's one chapter where he talks about budgets and having a budget so that you could save some money and spend it. And he said, if you were a horse in the desert, you may not want a budget, but if you were a horse in a desert and had to cross with no water, would you choose to carry water and hay versus diamonds? And they've gone, of course I'd pick water and hay. That's the budget of what you can physically carry. So that's our budget plan. Right? We're going to look at what you can physically do, and we're going to start with what's the most important and then go to the jewels at the end. So thank you, Sandy, for being our speaker today. Getting pulled out of the crowd with literally no warning whatsoever. There's always a great conversation that comes around it when we know precisely what it is that somebody does. Thank you, members, for audience, for participating in the conversation and being a part of it as well.